if I was going to recommend anything for a new leader, it's all about, say, emotional intelligence. We're so nervous and so uptight and so concerned about what's going on around us. And it's just like, hey, take the focus off of you, put it on them. And when you do that, you're not worrying about yourself. You're thinking about, how can I help this person grow?
Welcome to Backstage Pass with the HR Rockstar, the show that pulls back the curtain and cranks up the volume on the most pressing HR topics, from talent strategies and workplace culture to career pivots and leadership. Because in today's world, HR isn't just behind the scenes, it's center stage. I'm your host, Jay Arnold, and in the world of HR and talent, there are times you recognize top performers within the workplace, sometimes referred to as rock stars. This podcast combines my love of HR as my career with my experience of 10 plus years performing shows around Michigan and the Midwest in my rock band, chasing the dream of being an actual rock star. Join me as I sit down with rock stars in their fields to have fun, insightful conversations that keep the human in human resources. Together we'll disrupt, innovate, and amplify the future of work. So grab your pass, turn it up, and let's make some noise. Today, I'm joined by Emil Everett, a seasoned entrepreneur and leadership expert with extensive experience in strategic planning, negotiation, and sales. He is the founder and CEO of New Amsterdam, a training and coaching firm. With over 2 decades as a program facilitator and coach, Emil has engaged professionals from more than 100 industries across North America and Europe. He has conducted over 900 online sessions since 2020, adapting swiftly to the evolving landscape of professional development. And now he can add author to his credentials as he is the author of Leading with Trust, the 12 Elements of Achieving Peak Performance. This book offers a comprehensive framework for cultivating trust as a cornerstone of effective leadership, drawing from extensive research and real-world case studies. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Emil Everett. Hi, Emil. It's great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, Jay, it's great to be with you. And first of all, congratulations on the podcast and wishing you all the best with it. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here. As we get started, maybe you can just give a brief introduction of yourself and your background.
Well, it's as I like to say, I've got a pretty varied background. Came out of undergraduate school, worked for a bank. In working with the bank, I had a tryout with the Buffalo Bills as a place kicker, went to training camp with them. Unfortunately, I was cut pretty quickly, went back to the bank, and then I was exposed to the family business for a little bit. Then took a dive into graduate school. Oh, yeah, that was after running for Congress. And then jumping to grad school, moving down to New York City. My mother called me up one day and says, Emil, come home, take over the family business or I'll sell it right out from under you. I knew I was in for a tough negotiation. So I said, I got to take this job. But I said, I'm going to start my own asset management firm in addition to the insurance business that we had. And that took off, did that for well over a decade. Just absolutely loved it. Had a lot of great times. It was fun working with my mother, who was very successful. She was an educator, ran a family business. So it really kind of set things up for me to go into the asset management. Met my wife, who was living in New York. And I knew I wanted to always go back to New York, having spent some time there. Went back to New York and married my wife. He had an apartment in New York. Saw the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, sold it, moved to where we are now in East Hampton. And now I'm basically doing something I started early in my career, and that was working with an organization doing training for individuals in sales, leadership, negotiation. And it just spurred me to really make that full transition to this profession. And a lot of it was because of what was happening in New York. I had my asset management business, but I just was enjoying, as I like to say, get into the belly of the beast and working for some very large hedge funds, trading organizations, and then major sports leagues. And it just started growing and I just really appreciated it and loved it. So sold the asset management side of things and moved into this full time and just absolutely love it. I'm very fortunate to have a job that I actually love.
That's wonderful. When we first met doing one of those training sessions, and it was a game changer for me. I had kind of a similar thing, going to grad school, had a wonderful professor who was on a previous episode of my podcast that really got me into HR and really set the tone. And I felt very similar at your style, how you presented things, going, okay, this isn't theory. This is real life stuff I could take right back to my desk, my virtual desk or physical desk, later that afternoon if we had a morning session. And that continued for, a couple months that, our sessions were spread out. And it was fantastic. And I'm glad we stayed in touch, through this time as well.
Yeah, and it goes to the core of what I really like to do is bring some practicality. Having you in the group, that was so much fun. You had a really great group and it was just enjoyable. And by the way, you made it easy for me because you always had, some comments, you challenged me. And when that happens, that's the best of all worlds as a facilitator of programs, especially with what the leadership program that you were in. It just makes it fun. And there's nothing better than having people like you in a program that bring out the best. You highlight, you compliment everything that I try to do in those programs. So it's a pleasure to have someone like you in the program versus the ninja, versus that person who really wants to take you out. That's always fun too, because it's that challenge. And at the same time, though, it's a lot easier when I have someone like you in the room.
I really appreciate that. It was great because I still stay in touch with my cohort here and there. I think there was 3 or 4 of us, and I know 2 I'm connected with on LinkedIn. One is now working for a large OEM here in Metro Detroit, and he's doing very well. And another person I saw recently, we just moved into a new leadership role. So I reached out to him and said hello and congratulated him. And it's one of those things where how can I apply this on my job day to day? Speaking of that, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is you mentioned during that course you were working on a book, and I'm so happy that you're releasing your book, and it's called Leading with Trust.
There we go. Finally have it in print. Pretty excited about that.
Keeping with the book title is Leading with Trust: The 12 Elements for Achieving Peak Performance. Can you give an overview of the 12 elements of trust and which elements maybe are most challenging for leaders?
Well, it's a book that's was in the work for a long time. And I have to say, I was very fortunate during COVID because everything went virtual. And I had previously been certified as a virtual trainer, which made that transition very easy. And I had actually started the book before COVID, and it was just, I was just so busy. I was doing well over 200 3-hour sessions a year. And so the book kind of got pushed to the back burner a little bit, but finally I was able to bring it out and, finish it up in December and really put the finishing touches on it and got it back to the publisher. So we're coming out on May 6th and looking forward to that. But the book is really focused on during that time, thinking about what leadership is all about. And that's where the 12 elements came from, was really thinking about what is it that great leaders did? What was it that bad leaders do that drive us crazy? And as I said in the program, what are the things that drive you to therapy with leaders? And I categorized them, and they were the 12 elements. And it's really broken into 2 areas. As we look at leaders, or as us as leaders wanting to evaluate who we are as a leader, it really comes down to skill and character. And the character side is really about who the person is, thinking about their motives, for example, and is their heart in the right spot? Are they driven for the right reason? And then we go and think about their values, because as leaders, we need to express our values so people understand who we are. Those values represent the ethics, so how we behave. And on the character side, this is the focus of the book, is taking a look at those areas and breaking it down. And we talk about credibility, we talk about respect. And interestingly, when it came to the character, it really got me thinking about, as individuals, as leaders, we lead people from all over the world. And in individual cultures, we put different focuses on those aspects, say credibility, respect, and who you are as a person, your values. Every region of the world puts different emphasis on those things. So character is very important. And then the second side of it was really the skill side of being a leader. And as new leaders take on that role in most organizations, I think I heard some stat, like 70% of organizations don't provide leadership training for new managers, which is kind of scary. So we wanted to focus in on the skill sets and really understand that there are those leadership aspects of saying the vision, kind of setting the vision for the organization, much as famous founders have done for their organizations, whether it's Steve, Elon Musk, even dating back to the days of the Gilded Age with the Rockefellers and the Morgans. They all had visions of who they wanted to be and what they wanted their organizations to be, and then orient the organization to get it where it needs to go. And then come to the management side of things to ensure that these things are executed on. As we talked about, say, in the program, there's great leaders, lousy managers, great leaders. And the focus of the book is really understanding the management side as well, and such things as performance drivers. So There's a lot in the book for a short book, and I wanted to make it clear, concise, to the point, so people got value out of the book in addition to the content, making sure I respected their time in reading it as well.
One of the major themes is trust. I remember talking about that in our training sessions. And I mean, trust to me is everything. I had a great leader that approved my training for this when I had joined her team. I remember telling her that I said, yeah, I'm really glad that I was able to get into this session for this many months, and thanked her in one of our one-on-one calls. When I first joined her team, she told me, I start everyone off. I trust everyone that's on the team until someone gives me a reason not to. I said, that sounds great, because one, we've known each other, but we're getting to know each other on a different level now of being a partner to each other, a leader leading a leader, essentially. She was leading a team of leaders. And trust, whether it's a core value at an organization or just something you live by or something you lean on as a leader, when that trust is shaken, I looked at it. You mentioned this in one of the aspects of your book, and things start falling apart. You don't work together as a team. And I've seen it recently, and I've seen it in past organizations where leadership will make a decision. It might be unpopular, and it's hard to regain that trust. I saw one a number of years ago where someone questioned leadership on trust, saying, it's hard for us to trust you. The trust has been violated. And a senior leader got up and, what do you mean we don't trust you? And then some more things happened the following week or two. It's like, this is exactly why. How are you not seeing this? You might be looking at surveys saying where people are saying one thing. Surveys may not be telling the entire story.
Yeah, I mean, trust. I mean, trust goes to the heart of the matter, and trust needs. There are two sides of it. Some people say you have to earn your trust, and then there's people who says I give you trust until it's broken. And as long as that's understood, I think it's important, because everybody looks at trust in a different way, and if we understand it, then trust can be built. And when trust is present, as we know, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, things are done faster, quicker. Time is saved. Money and resources are allocated more efficiently, and a big part of it is just the relationship you have with individuals. It's that emotional intelligence. It's part of the conversations we have with people that really speeds up that particular aspect of trust. And when it's broken, and I've experienced it firsthand, you heard me talk about it. I'm pretty candid and pretty real about when trust is broken, the effects it has on individuals, their level of engagement, their questioning whether or not they want to stay with the organization. And studies have proven, if they don't believe in senior management, they don't believe in their supervisor, they don't believe in what they're doing, if any one of those is missing, they're halfway out the door. And they're either looking for a job or they're open to entertaining an interview. And as leaders, we shouldn't be allowing that to happen. We shouldn't learn about things at the exit interview. We should be having conversations throughout the day to understand where people's heads are at and how do we motivate them and how do we get to done what needs to be done. Because when trust isn't present and it's destroyed, it is extremely, extremely hard to rebuild. And, you have to earn trust all over again. And that pays a price to the individuals and the organization.
One of the hot topics that's been trending for some time now, because COVID hit in 2020. Coming out of it, obviously, there was a hiring boom in several industries where unbelievable salaries, sign-on bonuses, 100% remote work, hybrid work. It all depended on the industry, of course, and people rescinding their own job offer because they got offered tens of thousands more with one of the FANG companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. And it's like, how can you compete with them? There is a war on talent. And of course, we're kind of going through some challenging times right now with the job market. But one of the things that has been trending, whether it's from different HR organizations, is best practices is implement stay interviews. Look for those, what we call rock stars within the job category. Find out, there's always been that meme that goes around is when your top players get quiet suddenly and they're not sharing ideas, you should be very concerned. One of the things is implement stay interviews, not just once a year at the end of the year for performance saying, here were your metrics, you achieved A, B, or C, your bonus is going to be this. You should be having those one-on-ones on a bi-weekly or at least monthly to really get in to understand, like, how are your projects going? How are things going within your team? Because those are where the flags start going, okay, yellow flag, something's going on, red flag. And then that way you can't be surprised when someone goes, well, I'm giving my notice and here's why. And yeah, some people will absolutely give a notice regardless because a new opportunity, they're relocating. But one of the things that's been in the news recently about trust being broken is, I remember we talked briefly about this in one of our training sessions. For the longest time is Southwest Airlines was an unbelievable airline. And they always were known to be, well, they're really a customer service company that happens to fly airplanes. And the way the founders founded that company, the way their leadership was set up, the
Yeah.
story of the entire company, and the founders either retired, they've passed away. Now a hedge fund has come in and there's no more bags fly free. They've had mass layoffs for the first time in their history as an organization. Even after 9/11, they never laid off a single employee. And now they're just like every other airline. And I used to fly them as much as I could. But now I'd have to stop one or two times to get to where I want to go, depending where I'm going. You're giving me a more incentive to give all my business to a large global airline where there's a vast global network out of Metro Detroit where I can get to Europe and Latin America and the Caribbean and all over the US 99% of the time on a nonstop flight, and maybe even pay a tiny bit more. But those mile points are going to add up quickly. So seeing that destroy from the inside where you've been a fan for so long, it really is going to make me look at your book in a different light.
Well, it's really about leadership in those organizations. And if you look at Southwest, you look at, say, JetBlue, another airline, they all started up. They were unique. They had something innovative. They were creative. They made it fun and engaging. They offered up different things that people just simply, it's kind of interesting. You look at JetBlue, they just basically reversed and went back in time and said, here are leather seats. Here are, the entertainment is free. And it's like, that's pretty basic things. Now everybody's embraced it. And you got to stay ahead of the curve. And I read about this in the book. You got to really stay ahead of the curve or else you're going to fall behind. And you got to keep innovating and you got to be unique in what you offer. Another classic example is Starbucks. How many times can Howard Schultz come back and run the organization? And every time he's come back, it's just get back to your basic roots. Who are you as an organization? And what do you have, what do you have that makes you special, and play into it. And he hasn't come back into the role, but he's still saying, hey, get to the roots, back to your roots. I write about it in the book in terms of the first time he came back into the organization with the philosophy, hey, we can't do this. And he said, yes, you can. You got to get out of your own way. And part of this is really understanding that if we're going to build trust with our clients, we're going to build trust with our team, we're going to need to do the things that often involve risk. Because if you don't, you get complacency and then you just fade away. And so you need to take on risk. And if you got to build that culture, if you have trust, you have good value system, you have a leadership philosophy, you can really ebb and flow to what's happening around you to make those changes. And one organization that historically has been great at it is now kind of suffering is Intel. And just in the past few weeks, they started making some major drastic changes, but they dominated the semiconductor industry for decades because they were always staying ahead. And anytime they fell behind, they leapfrogged the competition. And then you take a look at, a company like Apple, they, basically they sit back, they observe, and then they pounce and they come out with a product that's similar, but better. And, now they're facing a little bit of product development, what's going to be new here. And they're taking a little hit on, the trust factor in terms of the product of not getting their artificial intelligence out quick enough. So once again, trust manifests itself in so many ways, but it ends up starting with the leadership and setting that culture.
There's something I had thought about for a long time was like what certain companies I always felt attracted to. Like, why am I so loyal to this company? Whether it's getting that cup of coffee, flying that airline over the competition, shopping at that store, looking for that product. And one thing that a previous guest of mine, Dr. Meadows, I believe you said you listened to that podcast. We talked in school about this, and there's something called the founder's effect. All the companies we discussed, Costco, Apple, Southwest, JetBlue, Starbucks, all had their founders running the organization for a very, very long time before they either retired, stepped down, and let someone else come in their place. Tim Cook's done a really good job of moving into where Steve Jobs left. And I think Costco, they haven't missed a beat. When the founder of Costco left, I think his COO at the time took over. And there's a infamous story now that's in print and on YouTube is that we're losing so much money in this $1.50 hot dog. We haven't raised it 20 years, whatever it was. And he's like, we're not making money on the hot dog. If you raise it, I will kill you. That was his exact quote.
I saw that, and as someone who shops at Costco, man, that was drawing the line. If they changed that price on a hot dog, there was war to be paid. And but that goes to the courage, but also understanding your business. because that is such a great loss leader that, and it just, it's a statement as to who you are. And you can't beat that. It goes to that thing. Who are you at your core? What do you believe in? And a lot of times, with these organizations that have grown really fast, you either go and commoditize yourself, or you're able to do it while maintaining that culture. And Costco is one of those organizations that's been able to do it really well. Southwest for many, many decades was able to do that well. Starbucks did it well, and now they suffered a little bit, and they kind of have to keep reinventing themselves. So it's a tough, and you need the right kind of leadership that understands the vision of the organization, where it's at, and how do you orient it to go where it needs to go. And once again, that's something I talk about in terms of the book. Usually we talk about vision and mission. It's really about vision, and then orienting that company to ensure that that vision becomes reality. A lot of organizations can't do that. It becomes, your Kodaks of the world. They had the first digital camera, but they weren't willing to orient the organization to say, okay, this is going to be the future. We have the chemicals, in the photos, the processing for what we have now, that cash flow. They didn't adequately use that cash flow to fund the next wave of digital photography, which they invented. So once again, that's leadership, understanding, where they are and where they need to go.
Yeah, I was telling a friend of mine, and he had flown JetBlue for a long time. He's like, "Yeah, they're so great." And I said, "Well, you realize who the founder is?" He's like, "No." And I said, "You realize where he got his start?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Southwest." Like, he actually created Morris Air, and then Southwest acquired Morris Air in Salt Lake City, and he
Yeah.
worked for Southwest. He was so innovative. They're like, "This isn't working out." He had a non-compete. So what'd he do? Go to Canada, started WestJet Airlines, the Southwest of Canada, and then came back and launched JetBlue in I think the fall of 2000, if I remember correctly, a year before the industry changed dramatically.
Yeah, and I can't think of the gentleman's name right now. Then he went on down to Brazil and started an airline down there.
Yeah, David Nealman.
Yes, that's David. And by the way, I actually did have a chance to meet him once. Buffalo, my hometown, was one of their first, flights, and I think it's still on the board is 01 is Buffalo, and they were running like 14 flights a day at one point. I don't know if they're still doing it, if not more, because they revolutionized the market where it used to be $400 to fly to New York one way. Basically, he cut that down to like $50, and that was just such a game changer. And in the quality, and they still have it today, but they've moved more towards just being a major airline. um, and what is it they can do to stay ahead of the curve? What's their next step?
We've talked a little bit about the different organizations here. Can you share a real world example where trust really transform a team or organization that maybe you've had the pleasure of working with? What were some practical steps leaders could take today to ensure that they're building trust within their teams?
Well, I think, as you know, probably my favorite example comes from my hometown. I am a Bills fan. They didn't go to the playoffs for 17 years.
Either the Lions.
I very similar, very similar. And the Bills, I mean, they kind of, Terry Bagula came in as the owner. He kind of cleared house, and just it was really, and that's some of the fundamental things. Sometimes you just got to clear house and clean house, and they're doing that in a number of teams have done it. I know right now, for example, the New York Mets have actually, the whole staff has been offered, from what I understand, they've been offered early severance packages just to kind of clean house. And in some respects, you got to do it. It's not easy. And then you bring in the talent that understands a change situation, a turnaround situation, and then guide it through that turnaround, and then move it towards an extended growth period. And in Buffalo, it's kind of been interesting to watch, because having gone to training camp with the team, I was involved with it as president of one of the organizations closely tied to the organization with the business people in Western New York. So I kind of saw firsthand how this all developed, over time, from when they were really bad to how they started moving forward. And now they have a great general manager, a great, coach. And the coach said, trust the process. He had to get the buy-in. And every one of the players has basically had a really good relationship. It's finding the right people with the right attitude. But once again, it starts at the top. McKinsey did a study and said, if you're going to build an organization, you're going to do it right, and you want that buy-in for trust, it starts with the ownership. And it's the ownership to every level of that organization. It's not easy to put together, but once you put it together and you have an organization that communicates, talks, with each other, throws things on the table, you have that transparency, things get resolved pretty quickly. Once again, I came from college football. I played in college. I had as a place kicker, we don't have to go to practice as much and do as much. We get to sit back and watch a lot. And I was very fortunate. I had a great coach and I got to watch what he did with everybody, whether it was one-on-one or whether it was in a team meeting. I was there more just to watch it. And it was fun watching. And he was such a great guy and his staff was wonderful that it was just a great experience. So in terms of that, that's where we see it most frequently. And then you see the teams that just continue to go on, can't help but hurt itself over the long haul. And like I said, the Bills went through that, but they finally able to turn it around. From organizations I've worked with, it's probably the toughest thing is talking to management and saying, you know what? We need to have a conversation and have some tough conversations because they send their people to training and their people at training come back and they say, it's my boss. It's almost as if we got to play the mediator in this situation. And to see the differences of how people react to that, you understand where teams are going to turn around. And, the teams that turn around, I don't want to say from a dollar perspective, it's hundreds of millions that have been created by going through that process. At the same time, just watching people's attitudes change. Once leadership understands that they need to change, because if they don't change, I've seen organizations fall by the wayside. I have friends in an organization right now that are suffering because of senior leadership's ineptness, not understanding the market, and really hurting the team people. The engagement scores are ridiculous. They wait a year and a half, 2 years to release engagement scores because they're so bad, and they're suffering because of that. In the organization that should be 3 to 4 times the sales that they have, they sit there and they say, it's inexcusable. Yet management does not want to recognize it, does not want to take blame. I grew up in Buffalo. When the steel mills closed, people actually, they retreated and they wanted to protect themselves and their little fiefdoms, if you want to call it that. And I've seen that, firsthand. And that's basically what those leaders are doing, is they're protecting their little fiefdom, just ride it out and not take the risks and do the things that really aren't risky, because if you do them, you're going to get better results. So it's interesting to watch as teams and organizations go through those changes.
As leaders look at their teams and trust is going fine, but unfortunately, as we talked of a couple examples, trust was broken or trust is broken within an organization from leadership to employees, or at a micro level from a director, a manager to their individual team members. What are some ways that leaders can rebuild that trust if trust is broken, whether within their control or outside of their control, like a market shift, a pandemic? Someone made a promise and a global pandemic hit and everything was out of everyone's control. What are some ways they could rebuild that trust?
Well, we go through different situations, and it's how we approach those situations. So if it's a chaotic situations, kind of like the pandemic, or say a factory shutting down, or there is workflow disruptions, supply chain issues, a lot that we've seen in the past several years, we need just to be candid and open with our team members and understanding, explain the situation, how it's going to impact not only financially, but how it impacts them personally. I'm a firm believer, take care of those who take care of you. I had an insurance business. When somebody got in a car accident, my first care was, are you okay? Not was, okay, tell me what happened. My whole thought process is, I'm here for you. I'm going to talk to you, and then address the situation. Now, if it's just a situation where trust has been broken, you have to admit it. You have to throw it on the table. You have to have that tough conversation. You can't hide it. If you do that, that's one big step in addressing that situation and admitting it and stepping up and saying, I made a mistake. And in what ways can we solve this together so that we can rebuild that trust? And be candid. It may never be the way it was, yet if I earn the right back, I will do everything in my power to do it. And then lay out a game plan and dot the I's, cross the T's to ensure what happened before doesn't happen again. Yet if we are not candid, if we aren't transparent, if we aren't strong enough to have that conversation, ultimately that relationship is going to deteriorate with the team, with the organization.
What are some daily habits or mindset shifts that really help cultivate trust-based leadership?
I would say, it really is, if you want to build trust with people, let them how can I say this? Take an interest in them and they'll take an interest in you. Have conversations, talk to individuals. If I was going to recommend anything for a new leader, it's all about, say, emotional intelligence. We're so nervous and so uptight and so concerned about what's going on around us. And it's just like, hey, take the focus off of you, put it on them. And when you do that, you're not worrying about yourself. You're thinking about how can I help this person grow? I think it's John Quincy Adams that had the quote, if you help that person learn more, become more, do more, you know what? That's a leader. So if you focus in on helping people grow in terms of achieving goals for the organization, create that alignment, that's what great leaders do. Because not everybody comes to the organization, comes to the table with the same goals. Everybody has their own goals. Yet if we can align it with the organization, we can get it done. The only way that happens is first by having a conversation.
So when in your career did you transition into founding of New Amsterdam, and what led to that decision?
As I mentioned, my mother made me an offer I couldn't refuse in terms of coming home and taking over the family business. I knew insurance wasn't my mainstay, yet I saw it as an opportunity to really seize an opportunity, something I saw happening in the investment field, something I'd wanted to take advantage of for a very long time. And I'd worked with one organization, said they were heading in that direction, and clearly they weren't. And it was really the fee-based business for investments versus doing transactional stock trades with a commission. And that business really wasn't even in sight for most people. And I saw, hey, this is a great way to really run a business, to really help individuals where, both parties win. If I do well, I make more money. If you make more money, you win as well. So it was really an opportunity to do that and then do it at a rate that wasn't really prevalent at that time because I had low overhead, low costs. So I could offer a very extremely competitive rate, kind of built on that Vanguard model. Also, what was happening at the same time was exchange traded funds, an investment product that had low costs. So with low fees, low costs, with a focus on them purely in terms of their investments and their goals, it was kind of ahead of its time. And I was one of, say, Fidelity's institutional investor platform. I was one of the first on that platform in terms of advisors. And so I was ahead of the curve. And that's kind of like leadership. You're trying to find, that opportunity and stay ahead of it. And that's what really drove me for years. And that was originally, I had a different name for it. And then I changed the name of the organization to New Amsterdam to reflect my two favorite cities in the world, Buffalo, my hometown, and also New York City. They were both originally named New Amsterdam, and that's where
I
it
didn't
came
know
from.
that.
Yeah, and that's how I picked the name, and it was great. And then as time went on, I had been exposed to the training world because that helped me grow my business, and I was like, this is fun. And then once I made that change to New York City and really getting into consulting and training, I was like, I love this investment stuff, but I don't have to worry about the markets as much. I've done extremely well in the markets, even lately. And it was just kind of like, you know what? I enjoy this without the headaches. And also the regulatory things. So it was just an easy transition to make that choice and to do what I do now. So I can't say it enough. It's just too much fun.
Looking at your book, I'm so happy that you're releasing this book. I can't wait for everyone to find it online and dive into it. And I know a handful of people that really love books like this, and I'm going to be sending them the link on Amazon once it's live and or for the pre-order.
Thank you.
Where can people find your book and follow your work going forward?
Well, it was put out by a division of Forbes Books. It's called Advantage, and it's basically everywhere. So it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target. It's on every major platform for book buying. Apple Books has it. So I mean, there's really no reason to hold you back from getting your hands on it because it's really a book I wrote with the best interest of helping individuals become leaders. It's a great book for leaders who want to just have a perspective and understand, hey, even with years of experience, decades of experience, how can I sharpen the tool, so to speak? And then the last reason I wrote it, and I put this in the acknowledgement, is, I have 3 boys. And given the fact that most people don't get the right training for leadership, I know sometime in their life they're going to be presented with an opportunity to step up. And if they have the opportunity to do that and do it right with some guidance from the book, they're all the better for it. And I already have one son who's already finished reading it. So, and he enjoyed it. He finished it in like less than a day. So the other two, they're kind of getting through it. But I was happy to see the one son just, crush it in less than a day.
I think I saw that picture on LinkedIn. He was sitting in your car reading it on the way somewhere. That's what your comment said. That's great.
Yeah, that's my son Colton. He's a soccer player, and we talk about being a leader on the field, and he's always been in that kind of a position, and he's had his opportunities to step up, and he's learning. So these are life lessons, and it's kind of funny. My one son, he's like, multiple friends are starting to ask for the book, and I'm like, all right, I'll give him a free copy. It's been fun.
Well, it's pretty cool if your kids, their friends are asking, hey, my parent wrote a book. You have to use that as a marketing ploy.
Yes, I don't say I'm going to exploit the children in my town, but it's kind of a fun thing. I have a great relationship. I had the opportunity to coach many of them with town soccer, as we call it, and did that for 7 years, twice a year, spring and fall. And the kids are great. And to watch them grow and have fun and still stay in touch with them, it's just fun. And so they're kind of having fun with me, with the book. I'm having fun because just seeing them grow, and it's awesome.
Our conversation on leadership has been great, but now I'm going to dive into some personal questions for you related to pop culture. If you were to share your, Spotify or Apple Music playlist, what are some artists we would find?
That's kind of dangerous because you may call me Sybil by the time I'm done. I love all different genres of music. Believe it or not, when I was growing up, some friends introduced me to like Motown. I mean, we're talking the Spinners, the OJs. My first concert was Diana Ross. So I absolutely love that. I mean, college, the classic Springsteen. It's all over the map. Rock, AC/DC. In the 2000s, we had bands. You heard Buffalo a lot, and you heard in the program a lot. I love my hometown. I mean, we had the Goo Goo Dolls, 10,000 Maniacs. And one of my favorite eras is like the 80s music that came out of England. You call it the first wave. Back then, we called it new wave. Just I love it. And Canada has such great music. I mean, I just love music in general. So if you look at my playlist, it's all over the map. One thing you will not find is Katy Perry. You will not find Taylor Swift. I'm kind of old school in that nature, but you will find everything in there.
Well, even though my daughter might be sad to hear that from you because she's a big Swiftie, I'm sure she'll still read your books. But
Well, I'm also a Bills fan. So with her dating a Kansas City Chief, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough.
you mentioned Buffalo. The Goo Goo Dolls, definitely top 10 favorite band of mine for sure. I mean, I liked them when they were punk going into more of the pop style. And I was like, who's this new band with this song Name or this song Iris? I'm like, oh no, they've been around since 586. They used to play this really infamous club here in Metro Detroit called Paychecks in Hamtramck, Michigan. Every band has played there. You're not in the Detroit music scene unless you played Paychecks. And I know they played there years and years ago when Robbie was the singer and Johnny was just the guitar player. So yeah, huge fan of the Goo Goo Dolls.
Well, it was funny. A good friend of mine I'll never forget, he told me the story. His mother comes home one day and she says, "Oh, I met this wonderful woman working out at the health club, and I was just telling her how successful you are and how proud I am of you." And he's like, "Well, who did you talk to?" And she says, "Oh, her son is a musician and he's a drummer for a band." And he asked, "What band was it?" And of course, it was the Goo Goo Dolls. And he's like, "Mom, he's doing so much better than me. You won't even believe." He like goes to the TV, turns on like MTV, and there are the Goo Goo Dolls. They're playing one of the songs. I mean, we're talking old school, and it was hysterical. He's doing pretty well, Mom. He's doing pretty well.
They played a Detroit show, one of their biggest albums. It had to be early 2000s. And they were doing an in-store meet and greet, signing their new album. For all you kiddos, these were CDs I'm referring to. And we stood in line. I wanted to meet him. I was going to the show later that night and took some pictures with the guys. My bass player was with me at the time. And I had a T-shirt of my band. And I said, Johnny, can I get you to wear my band's T-shirt on stage tonight? We're all going to be in the crowd. He's like, well, I don't know about that. And the drummer grabbed the T-shirt. We took a picture of it together. That was funny because we all had flyers on us, handbills, and we were in the top balcony of the State Theater, now called the Fillmore, downtown Detroit, where they were playing. And as they were saying goodbye, the crowd started emptying. Well, we took all of our flyers and threw them off the balcony so people would see these flyers, and that we were playing St. Andrews Hall a week later, right down the street. And it's like, street level, hitting, pounding the pavement marketing. That's what we were doing for sure.
I was going to say that's beautiful marketing. You may not get away with it today, but I'll tell you something. And that's thinking outside the box. That's just in a spur of the moment. You see that opportunity, you got to seize it.
That was our social media post back in the day, throwing
It
hard
is.
paper to the people that we might share the same kind of crowd, same kind of fan, versus just posting it on one of the social platforms now and then forgetting about it 10 seconds later. What was the last show or concert or play or event you attended?
What comes to mind is just last October, which seems like a long time ago, was Blue Man Group in Boston. I don't know if you've ever seen Blue Man Group, but it's just an amazing show. It's interactive. It's a combination of music and I don't even know how to explain it. It's music. It's just an experience. I can't think of anything else to explain it. But I took my boys to it and we just had a bit of fun time. It was just so much fun. So if you ever have a chance to see Blue Man Group, take advantage of that opportunity. Because I think in New York, they're actually closing their performances in New York. But I think like in Vegas, Chicago, and Boston, they're still around.
Yeah, a drummer he was in a rock band that I followed for a long time in the late 80s, early 90s, and he became one of their drummers for a long time. So it's been on my bucket list to see. Maybe we'll make our way to Vegas and see it or something.
It's fun.
What is a fun or unique fact that many people may not know about you?
I think the one I share with the most, I think I shared with your group, is I'm a diehard skier. I mean, I don't think there's anything in my life that gives me greater happiness than being out on the slopes with my boys. I taught them how to ski, and now to see them up in skiing, kind of something that my parents did with me. My mother and my father had two great parents, and for them to teach me how to ski, and then for me to turn around and do it with them, and to watch them grow and be able to ski with them now. And now as I'm starting to slow down and they're picking up, it's fun. It's fun. And it's just a special moment. So I think if there's anything in life, not to be confused with the ski resort itself, Solitude, it gives me that peace of mind.
What was the last show you binge watched on one of the streaming platforms like Netflix or HBO that you just really enjoyed?
I just watched the end of Yellowstone. The last was 4 or 5 episodes. So I just did this over the past weekend. I was like, I'd actually forgotten about it. I knew that they did it, and I kind of purposely avoided any news on it because I didn't want to, spoiler alert, because I really love the series. And so I will binge watch the last of that. And then the other one was The Recruit, which I'm not sure they're going to renew. So that was good. I really enjoyed that one. And then, of course, since we're kind of talking about it, my favorite one of all time is Ted Lasso. Talk about leadership. Not to bring it around, but just a great show that has so many great little tips on leadership and in such great humor too.
I interviewed an employment attorney recently, and that was one of his favorite shows. And he talked about how he retweeted so much of the show when he was on Twitter back in the day that Apple sent him a thank you box. He couldn't believe it because he basically was giving them free marketing.
Wow.
So my YouTube version of his show, I have a picture of Ted Lasso, and now my wife and I and my son have dived into the show because we have Apple TV now, and we're on season 2 already, and we're like, oh, I totally get it now. We really
Yeah.
love the show.
It's so well written, and I guess now they're coming back for another season to the extent Ted Lasso it's Jason. How do you pronounce his?
Oh, Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah, Sudeikis, and him coming back, but still, it's just such a great cast. It's just well written, and it's a
Yeah.
great show.
I think I'm gonna have to get one of those believe signs and hang it on my wall here in my home office because it makes so much sense now.
We have like a million coffee mugs with the Believe on it. I gave one to each of the boys. They love it, and it was a great timing too because it was during the time that I was coaching them in soccer, and we were just having fun. It just made it fun, and by the way, we always played London Calling from The Clash on the way to the games because that was the theme song for soccer.
Nice.
And because we're big fans of the Premier League.
As we're wrapping up, what are some final takeaways for listeners on leadership and trust?
At the end of the day, it's all about people. It's all about showing that respect. It's about taking an interest in others and they'll take an interest in you. It's setting people up for success. It's making sure that you set expectations and you really do set them up for success and give them an opportunity to grow. As I ended in the first half of the program that you took with me, for example, my son Colton, there was an opportunity where I needed to step in and coach for one of my kids. And my twins team, the coach didn't show. And I turned to Colton. I said, Colton, you want to coach? And he said, yeah. And he said, And I said, what do you need to do? And he labeled off everything I taught him as to how to get ready before the game. He did it with the kids, got them lined up, went to the sideline, started coaching. And it's the story I open up with the book. And it just exemplifies, how many times do we have an opportunity to let others lead? Yet we end up doing it ourselves. It's called delegating. It's called handing off. It's called really succession planning. But once you do it, it's one of the great joys in life to watch people do it. And as I say in the book, hopefully people will do that for others and enjoy the rewards, the feelings I had in that moment as a proud father, they will as a proud leader.
Emil, this has been wonderful to sit down and connect after all this time. I'm very happy for you and the launch of your book, and I'll be cheering from you both in the real world and the digital world online. If you found value in this, please be sure to subscribe and keep rocking HR excellence.